gums at each other any chance they get. The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo. One of the greatest knockouts you'll ever see. It's time
for you to sit back, relax, and listen to a complete and fucking utter armchair expert give his completely and utterly useless opinions on the one hell of an amazing sport that is MMA.
G'day guys, it is that time of the month again, and we are back with episode 4 of MMA Quick Chat, because of course the UFC is back with UFC 291 what am I talking about? Gaethje versus Poirier 2 for the BMF title, which was of course vacated by Jorge Masvidal. God, I'm bloody 30 seconds into the podcast and I'm already screwing it up. Gee whiz. But yeah, this is a stacked card, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, co-main evented by the light heavyweight debut of Alex Periera taking on Jan Blachowicz, and you would think the winner of that will get a shot at the light heavyweight title. But of course, that's not all, ladies and gentlemen, because also El Cucuy, Tony Ferguson, makes his return on this card. And I am, I love Tony Ferguson, so I'm so excited for that. But I also, just before I start the next segment, I want to sort of recap UFC 290, which just went down at the start of the month, because I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, what a stacked card that was. We, of course, had Robbie Lawler retiring, getting a win to end the... what do you call it? Is it the prelims, the middle bit of the card, or is that just I don't know. But anyway, he was the last fight before the main card started. Anyway, I'm showing how much of a novice I am there. I don't know these things. But yes, he was the last fight before the main card started. And he got a win. Just, went out ruthless as always. Yeah, what a career, man. What a legend. Thanks for all the memories. Ruthless Robbie Lawler. You've already got a fight in the Hall of Fame. You will surely get a place yourself in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, what a career, man. Well done. Well done. Well done for retiring happy, healthy. Yeah, well done, man. But of course, we had Bo Nickel getting a win to take his record to 5-0. Dan Hooker and Jalen Turner, what a bloodbath that was. Dan Hooker's now blonde hair and got tattoos on his leg, and that was full of blood. What an absolute bloodbath that was. Went to a decision. Robert Whittaker shockingly got beaten by Dricus du Plessis, which was supposed to set up a title shot with Izzy, and of course Izzy came in the cage and confronted Dricus, which, by the way, I think I pronounced his name wrong during the last podcast, so I do apologise for that. Dricus du Plessis. But Izzy apparently thinks, and it should be said that this has not been officially announced by Dricus or the UFC, but Izzy seems to think that Dricus has an injury, or he's pulled out for some reason. And the fight's now going to be Izzy versus Sean Strickland. I don't know about that. If that fight happens, all I can say is, one, good on Sean Strickland, because he's been, gunning for that fight for a while. But two, God, I can only imagine how the press conference is going to be, because Strickland has beef with Izzy, and he can talk trash too. So if that fight does happen in Sydney, or at all, wow, all I could say is I'm looking forward to it. I do hope he fights Dricus, because, like I said, wow, he TKO'd Bobby Knuckles in the second round. I was not expecting it. I think it's fair to say a lot of other people weren't expecting it. But, ladies and gentlemen, this card was, of course, full of unexpected surprises because the former flyweight champion was defeated by Alexandre Pantoja after 5 rounds, after it going the distance in the co-main event, and he's now the flyweight champion. And of course, he had his family in the octagon, and it was an emotional speech, and I think a lot of people got behind him for that. Yeah, well done to him. But of course, it was unexpected. I think a lot of people thought Moreno was going to win. But of course, the main event, Volk retained easily in the third round, and made it look easy against Yair, and retained and unified. It should be said, his belts, because Yair won the interim belt, of course, to cap off what was a pretty solid all-round UFC 290, and I've got the poster from it. As you guys know, I usually only get the poster from fight events that I enjoyed. But yeah, I just wanted to recap UFC 290 that's just gone, just prior. I thought I'd do it just prior to, the UFC 291 analysis, if you will, because, do it in chronological order. But anyway, guys, I'm going to take a break, listen back to this, and when we come back, UFC 291 analysis. All that and more when we come back. So, UFC 291 from the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Of course, as I discussed, the main event and the co-main event, and of course, Al Cucuy is returning against Bobby Green. They're saying that Tony Ferguson is going to be the favourite in that fight. Gee, I hope he wins, man. God, he's been, he's on a bit of a, he's been on a bit of a run of bad luck of late. So yeah, I definitely hope he can get the win. He's the second fight of the main card. Definitely hope I can be out early enough to see him fight. And yeah, just hope for the best for him. Second fight I'm really looking forward to is, of course, the light heavyweight debut of Alex Periera. The light heavyweight debut of Alex Periera against Jan Blachowicz. One would hopefully think that that would set up a light heavyweight title shot. Sorry, I'm Googling. Just want to correct my statement from before. Sorry, I keep getting confused by betting odds because I normally look at my betting app's betting odds, and when I look at the betting odds on here, it just looks confusing to me on the UFC website. They are not saying Tony Ferguson's going to win. They reckon Bobby Green has got that match up, although I hope Tony Ferguson can get a win back, of course. But to get back to what I was saying before, definitely very keen for the light heavyweight debut of Alex Periera against Jan Blachowicz. Will not be an easy fight. Will definitely not be an easy fight at all. It looks like, from what I can tell, they are saying Alex is going to win, although they're probably saying it's going to be very close. It should be a scrap either way, and I'm definitely looking forward to it, which of course leads us to our main event of number 2 and 3 ranked lightweight fighters. Dustin the Diamond Poirier versus Justin Gaethje for the baddest motherfucker in the UFC. the winner gets made the baddest motherfucker in the UFC. I mean, it's a gimmick belt. You know, we all know what it is. The Rock was the one that unveiled it. You know, obviously it's a marketing thing, but nonetheless, I'm still very keen for it. Going to be a scrap, nonetheless. I didn't get to see the first fight that they had, so I'm definitely very excited for this fight. Hard to say who I think's going to win out of either of those fights, to be honest. All I can tell you is that they're both going to be absolute scraps, and that they're both going to probably be fairly interesting. But anyway, I am going to take a break and listen back to this to make sure it all recorded properly. It looks like it is. And when we come back, I'm going to talk about some upcoming fights and fight cards. Just to end the podcast out, probably a little bit of a quick one. Probably did brush over the card a little bit. I'm sorry for that. You know what I'm like with fight cards that are a bit to me. I mean, the card ain't bad. The card is pretty solid. It's not terrible. It's not stacked, but it's not terrible. But, you know, I'm very picky with my fights. I don't really, you know, talk about the fights that I am not all that interested in. But anyway, I'm going to take a break, like I said, and when we come back, I'm going to talk about some upcoming fights that I am excited for. All that and more when we come back. There's a couple of fights coming up that I am really excited for. First of all, of course, is UFC 292, Sugar Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling for the, I keep forgetting the names. Is it the bantamweight title? I believe it is. Hold on. I shall look it up. I believe it is the bantamweight title, but God, I'll discuss that in a minute. Yep, for the bantamweight title. So Aljo versus Sean O'Malley in Boston. I'll talk about that in its own episode, but that's excited me even more because if you know who Aljo walks out to and where he's from, yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Yeah, so obviously definitely looking forward to that fight. I saw Aljo's last fight against Henry Cejudo. Of course, Sean came into the cage and set that fight up, you would think. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. UFC 293, of course, in my own backyard of Sydney, which tickets just went on sale for today. And when I looked up UFC 2 on Google, the first few searches that came up were UFC 293 tickets. So I'm already guessing that card is gonna sell out like a motherfucker. Bam Bam has been announced for it. Typically, I wish Volk could have fought on it. I mean, who knows? It could still happen. Would be sick to hear "I come from a land down under" in Sydney. That would be awesome. Yeah, I hope Jack Della could fight on it. Would be awesome if Izzy could fight on it. Yeah, would just be an awesome card. And I was thinking about going to it, but as it turns out, I don't think we're going to be able to. When it comes to Melbourne again, though, as I've said to my mate Jesse, no ifs, buts, or fucking maybes about it. Start saving that money because we're going. We're not missing out on that. But yeah, fucking... There's been a lot more Australian UFC events than I realised. I was looking on the OzNZ Instagram account earlier, and man, there's been a lot more Australian UFC events than I realised. It started with Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez came and fought in Sydney in 2010, and now here we are in 2023, and we're about to have another event in Sydney. So crazy, and we of course know the history First fight in Melbourne was that infamous Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm fight in 2015. The second one was Izzy and Anderson, I believe, and also, who else was on there? Oh, there was some other... I actually saw the poster for it. I forget what it was, but... And then, of course, Izzy versus Bobby Knuckles 1, and now Volk versus Makachev in Perth, and now, of course, UFC 293. Yeah, man, Australia. We're taking over, man, but... To continue on the thread of fights I am excited for, it was announced the other day, UFC 294, Islam versus Charles II in Abu Dhabi. That's going to be big as well. Definitely keen for that, given the way their first fight went. UFC 280, I believe it was, the one I had to stay up for. And it was announced, of course, that the Australian card was happening, or not announced, but Khabib came in and said, "We want to fight in Champ's backyard," which pretty much started it. But, ladies and gentlemen, UFC 295, Madison Square Garden, John Bones Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the heavyweight championship. That one is going to be not miss indeed. Definitely a couple of stacked cards, or not, I don't know about stacked cards, but definitely a couple of fights that are going to be not miss right there, ladies and gentlemen. And I just wanted to address before I ended the podcast, I was going to address it off the top of this segment. I really bungled the intro. I said it was US episode 4 when it was in fact when it is in fact episode 24, and then of course there was the other one that I mentioned. Jesus, what can I say? But anyway, guys, hope you enjoy this card again wherever you're watching it from, and I guess I'll speak to you guys prior to UFC 292. Which I, of course, am also looking forward to, and we'll speak more about on that episode. But anyway, guys, enjoy the fight. Until next time, catches.